Within our 7-week program, we have lunch and learns, kind of focus on different aspects of finances, marketing competition, how to actually pitch to investors. So it's giving a chance for these founders that are in the program to kind of nitpick through the different mentors we have here in Houston or in other cities, and giving a chance to actually ask them questions within their areas of expertise.
We're sort of at the crossroads of innovation and tradition in mentorship, right? Mm-hmm. And I think we're both interested in using the power of mentorship. Thinking about, the founder and their mindset. I mean, growth often occurs outside of comfort zones.
That wisdom for forging the future is always being open for opportunities no matter where they land and no matter how they come to you. You may not notice at the moment when it's coming to you if you need it at that moment of time. Everything kind of happens and comes to you for a reason.
Welcome to Forging the Future, and I'm thrilled to be here today with Muriel Foster, who is the director at gBETA. So Muriel is a key figure in the startup and entrepreneurial space, particularly associated with the organization Generator, right? And this is a top-ranked venture firm and accelerator and a melting pot of ideas and talents where startups, artists, and innovators turn their dreams into reality. Sounds cool.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Chris.
Absolutely. I've been wanting to talk to you for some time now, and luckily we ran into each other at the Texas Venture Gala and said, hey, why don't you come on and tell us about what you're doing? Because I really don't know a lot about Generator or what you're doing there, and it sounds like a really interesting program. We're sort of at the crossroads of innovation and tradition in mentorship, right? Mm-hmm. And I think we're both interested in using the power of mentorship. And it's leaders like you who are willing to redefine that path, right? So maybe you could tell me a little bit about how you're currently transforming the approach, for equipping today's entrepreneurs with tomorrow's challenges.
Yeah, so I can go into a little bit about gBETA and how we kind of do that.
Mm-hmm.
So within our 7-week program, we have this 3 kind of components we focus on. So we do lunch and learns, kind of focus on different aspects of finances, marketing competition, how to actually pitch to investors. And then we go into kind of one of my favorite things that we do in the program called mentor swarms. So it's giving a chance for these founders that are in the program to kind of nitpick through the different mentors we have here in Houston or in other cities, and giving a chance to actually ask them questions within their areas of expertise. And I think that's my favorite component of it because of the fact of you're getting a chance to kind of bring founders in that don't have like that network they need to kind of go to the next level, and literally kind of just not force feeding in a sense, but kind of bringing them in and being like, here's like 5 different individuals that you need to kind of ask these questions to, and you're getting that quick 15 minutes to really go in and ask those hard-hitting questions. And then we have another component that's focused on and kind of more in the same aspect, but more for investors. And that portion is really getting that chance to get that feedback back from those investors. You've went through this program for these first 6 weeks, being able to kind of go through these different components of really scaling your business. And now you're getting a chance to pitch to those investors and being able to get that feedback. So I think in the sense is kind of how we're kind of doing that aspect of branching out these founders' networks, and being able to kind of bring individuals in to really help them with that growth.
And are you one of the mentors then, or how does that work?
Yeah, so additional to that, there are 2 one-on-one meetings that I do with these founders throughout their weeks of the program. So I guess you can say I'm more of their long-term mentor throughout the program. Okay. And in the beginning of the program, I really give them like 3 specific components. I'm really asking them, what are your 3 big rocks? And with those 3 big rocks, how are we going to break those down into little pebbles over that time? So we're making sure that you're either getting at least to one of those key things that you're really wanting to hit, or maybe all 3. So I guess you can say in that sense I am one of their mentors. I kind of like to say, since some of those founders aren't really having co-founders that go along with them in that program, I'm kind of that additional co-founder that they may need for that 7 weeks to be able to kind of assist them.
Because a lot of founders don't really realize the power of a network,
Mm-hmm.
right? They don't really have that network of advisors,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so you're helping them kind of build that with relative, relevant relationships
Yeah.
to their startup. Where do you find your mentors?
Oh, everywhere. So I really focus in, since we're specifically focused on the Houston market, really try to focus in on local mentors here. So we have mentors from other accelerators here in the space, like Founders Institute, Mass Challenge. And then we also just focus on other just key individuals in the space, whether they are software developers or individuals within SCORE and other kind of facets to really hone in. And then we also, within the broader generator network, have a multitude of mentors as well that we kind of pick and choose, kind of depending on what the founders are really needing.
And what's your background? I mean, how did you end up at gBETA?
It's an interesting story because I really feel like when I got into this role, if you would have asked me 4 years ago, would I be in this space, I would be like, no, I'd be at a nonprofit somewhere doing community work. But I feel like that community aspect that I have wanting to go into the nonprofit space really kind of fell running gBETA. I actually, about 3 years ago when I was getting my master's at Texas Southern, a colleague of mine had a startup that she wanted to run. And at that time, I was like, I have no idea what a startup is. I have a marketing degree focusing on sales, trying to figure out the nonprofit space. And someone is telling me asking me to do a startup. So from there, I really wanted to kind of figure out what that space was. Ended up getting an internship with an accelerator that just so happened to kind of hit those components of really understanding what the startup ecosystem is, and also kind of being in that nonprofit space that I'm around. And I loved it. I got to be around so many amazing founders, and from there turned me going into working in the nonprofit space, but more on the investor side and community, still being able to kind of do that community thing that I loved. And it just kind of, I guess you can say, it kind of was in the stars for me to kind of find this role here for gBETA and being able to kind of hone in what I learned in the beginning with the internship that I had to being able to go in and start running my own program here with gBETA.
So what was the motivation for you to be involved in a nonprofit? Sounds like that was something you were interested in from the start.
There was one individual in my undergrad that was in the business school at the time, and she really just took a chance on me. And when I say that I was, at the time, it was my junior year. I didn't really have like a set plan of what I wanted to do. Like I said earlier, I was in marketing. I thought I wanted to go into sales, realized I don't like sales. And I was working in the Career Center at my undergrad university, and there was a project that they really wanted to focus on, specifically for students wanting to understand the more career-specific things that they needed. And I found out that there was a career closets in other different universities. And I told the director of the Career Center at the time, and I was like, oh, this would be great for the students to have. She was like, okay, great. So you should make that. And so from there started this, at the time I didn't realize I was doing a startup either, which was an interesting thing I kind of thought about afterwards, was that at that time I was like, okay, well, let me figure out how I can magically create a career closet for an entire department. And it went from me sending one email to one professor at my college to multiple professors coming into the Career Center, bringing me clothing after clothing, being able to get donations from a corporate company to be able to bring clothing in. And now we're having students, not just from the business school coming to get clothing, but we have students from the engineering department. We had the president of the university at that time coming in and bringing in a suit that I was able to personally hand down to an engineering student. That kind of really made me want to go into this nonprofit space. And now that I think about it now, that nonprofit and like startup mix is like so interesting to me, because as I'm thinking about it now, I had to recruit friends to kind of help with actually doing this closet. And now I'm thinking about it, I was coming to get friends. I had a friend that was a graphic designer and a friend that was a MIS major. And I was like, I need someone to do these graphics. I need someone to figure out this inventory system. And now that I think about it, I was like, oh, you can just help me and hopefully I can get you paid. Now I'm thinking, oh, I was involving sweat equity into this, now going into this space. So that kind of really projected me wanting to go into that nonprofit space and really honing in on me wanting to give back. And even though I'm still in the nonprofit space in other capacities, but that one piece of someone taking a chance on me is a piece that has projected me wanting to continue to try and make sure that I am going to another person and wanting to make sure that they are getting the things that they need.
So really that giving mentality on nonprofit. Is gBETA a nonprofit? Or
No, we are not. We're a B Corp.
A B Corp, okay.
Yeah.
And is it a franchise, or is it who founded gBETA?
So Generator was founded about 10 years ago with Joe and Troy. Around the time, I believe 2 years into them creating Generator, they went to University of Indianapolis and they started this gBETA program. Now, at first, it was just with students that were at the university, but they kind of did the current format that I kind of said in the beginning was that golden format that they used with those university students to be able to help them with that beginning development of their products. And that kind of element that they use in that beginning portion is kind of now what we have for over 20 cities and other 20 areas that we focus gBETA on.
So it's in 20 cities now?
Yes.
Okay. And is there a specific profile that you're looking for in founders?
So for a couple of our programs, they're city specific. So like specifically for Houston, we are going to be location specific just for our Houston founders. Going into Wisconsin, for example, Madison, Wisconsin is going to be in that space. We do have other programming that are more nationwide, but they just have specific industries they're focusing on. So we have our gBETA Social Impact. Those two programs are education and also social justice innovation. And then we also have a gBETA MedTech program as well. So most of the time it's really focusing on just that location-specific aspect, or when we go more with our more national programs, they're just more industry-specific.
Okay. Maybe tell a little bit about what a typical day looks like for a founder in the gBETA program.
So a typical day for a gBETA founder. So going into that, I'm going to go through kind of like one of our, kind of more not just a day, more kind of like a week. So we're going to, usually on those Mondays, we have our lunch and learn. So let's say we are focusing on a lunch and learns that's over a marketing competition. We have that speaker coming in on those Mondays. Then maybe that Tuesday, we'll have our one-on-one. So let's say, Chris, you are my founder for that day. So I'm going in, we're looking back at those 3 rocks that I talked about earlier, and we're going to look at those and be like, okay, Chris, well, we are focusing on getting more MOUs for you this week. How has that been looking so far from the previous week? Is there anyone specifically that I need to contact to make sure that we're getting those MOUs signed or having more individuals and customers for you to connect with to get those MOUs? And so that's kind of how it typically goes with the one-on-ones, depending on what specific things they're working on. Sometimes we're more focusing on pitch-specific items. Sometimes a founder just needs to vent, and that's okay. And sometimes we're really kind of honing in on co-founder relationships too. Sometimes there may be disagreements, sometimes there may not, but really kind of just focusing in on individualized specific things for each founder that kind of comes into the program. Next day, usually on Wednesdays, we'll do our mentor swarms. So our founders are coming into our office, getting a chance to do that 2-hour session with all 5 of the mentors that we have coming in, doing those speed rounds. And then the next day after that, we'll kind of go into more one-on-ones with those founders, kind of recapping what those mentor swarms were looking like, how are they going to be assisting you with those goals that we're setting for that week and for the rest of the program, and if there's any additional connections that I need to make for you or things we need to kind of work through from the beginning of that week.
Okay. Is it cohort-based? Is there a number of companies in the cohort?
Yeah.
And then that lasts for that 7 or 8 week period?
Yeah, so we only focus on 5 founders per cohort. Okay. Yeah, and that kind of really helps with that like individualized approach with each founder, because as I'm working with each founder's journey is going to be different with me. I have some founders coming in, like I've already developed my product. I'm just running through and kind of updating things for like the next beta. Some founders are coming in and they're looking directly for customers. Some founders are still in that process of developing those MVPs, and they're wanting to know of other resources that they can use for developers and things like that.
So if I'm in the program, am I giving up equity? Am I getting an investment? Or is it just like a mentorship opportunity? Or what's the value from or the cost also?
So with gBETA, there is no cost other than time. Mm-hmm. So we are a zero equity program. So completely free to any founder that's in the program.
Mm. And how many are you picking from, as far as how many are applying?
So we're picking through a typical application pool looks like between 45 to 50 founders in each application pool.
And they're all here in Houston then?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Being a founder myself, I think there just really wasn't much available like this back in the day, so I can really see an advantage of getting that type of mentorship as a founder across various industries and domains, right, that you set these founders up, and how impactful that is. And that's something we've also tried to do in our venture studio, right, trying to give back and share our own experience in building companies and going through the process and the mistakes and helping them avoid at least some of the mistakes that they're making in the program. So when you're recruiting mentors, where are you getting those from generally? Are they previous entrepreneurs, or are they, employees at larger companies?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of both. So we have a good amount of mentors that are previous founders. So whether they're kind of within maybe the private equity space or they've done a tech company themselves. And we also have other bigger, larger organizations that come in and mentor. So for example, we've had individuals from like Amegy that'll come in and talk about banking specific items for our founders. We've had individuals from Amazon that'll come in and provide their areas of expertise as well. So it's a vast amount of areas that we kind of get our mentors from. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you have a pool of mentors, and then as each startup comes into that cohort, you pick those 5, and then you're aligning up to 5 mentors per startup.
So it's kind of more like each week for those first 6 weeks, it's five mentors per week. So it's like about 15 minutes that they get with each mentor. And sometimes when I start off the program, it's very kind of broad because it's kind of your first time going into a mentor swarm. And you're kind of like, I have no idea what I'm going to ask. Like I have these 5 people with these amazing expertise, and you're kind of like, I have so many questions, but how do I kind of put them into the first 15 minutes of us talking? So usually the first week I have really close-knit founders or alumni that I kind of use. So whether they're alumni from my gBETA that we have here in Houston, or I'll go to the other gBETA's and see if they have any other alum that are interested. Also, kind of in the office that we're in at the Downtown Launchpad, we have Impact Hub. So I kind of try to make sure that we have members from Impact Hub as well coming in to be a part of that first mentor swarm, especially because that first one is, it's kind of a little bit intimidating being able to kind of go into these different rooms. So it's kind of being like, okay, I'm going to provide you with this inner kind of community that you have here at the Launchpad, and then that next week and the weeks after, we're kind of being able to continue to expand that network that you're kind of getting.
And you do it all in person then, or you do something? Okay. So if you align with the mentor though in another location like Atlanta or something like that, I mean, do they come to Houston, or do you do that virtually?
So we'll do it in like a hybrid sense. I've actually even had a mentor that was all the way in Australia, and he kind of made sure, like, we did it completely in the evening with that swarm, and he was like, I will be there. It may be 7 o'clock in the morning, but I'm going to make sure that I'm there.
Interesting. Okay. Thinking about, the founder and their mindset, I mean, growth often occurs outside of comfort zones, right? Getting founders outside of their normal, comfort box. So some may support that, some may not, right? So thinking about your own career, maybe show a moment that, really pushed you outside of your own comfort zone.
Yeah. I actually think running the first gBETA that I ran 2 years ago was pushing me out of my comfort zone. I was just now kind of going into understanding the startup ecosystem and how I can assist. And I had a cohort that was a very strong-willed cohort. And I think that was the greatest challenge for me when I first started running this program. They were very defined in everything that they needed. They made sure that I was on my toes a lot when I was doing that program, and it was so intimidating for me at first because I was in this space and I was so new, but I knew that I had the knowledge base to be able to kind of provide them with either that network that they needed or just assistance in general, and like maybe updating their executive summaries and things of that nature. But I definitely think that first cohort was really the one that pushed me to wanting to continue to start making sure that I was providing those founders what they needed. And that cohort, I want to say, was really the highlight for me when I first started. It made me realize that I could continue doing this. One of the founders specifically, from being after that 7 weeks in my program, was able to get funding from an equity-based accelerator right after. So I could see the progress that we went through working in this program, being able to rapidly excel him to the funding that he needed.
So did you have a little bit of imposter syndrome for that first cohort? Like, who am I to mentor these guys on startups?
I did. I kind of came in the room and I was like, "Ooh, this is me." I picked these people. And it was so intimidating. And I think also kind of me being younger in this space too kind of really set me back. And it really took a lot of like internal work for me to be like, you are in this space for a reason and you're doing this work for a reason, and you were picked to be the director because they knew that you were able to make sure that these founders were getting to where they need to be and scaling to where they wanted to.
Mm-hmm. And so they were pushing you to be better.
They were definitely pushing me to be better. And especially because like I was in this aspect of kind of I knew a lot not too much in the tech space and about creating apps and developing those apps, but they were kind of pushing me to want to learn more. And so I was working with each founder and their different components, and I was like, I need to get a book. I was like, I need to make sure that I'm researching as much as I can to make sure when I'm coming back into these meetings with these founders that I'm equipped for their meetings, and they're also making sure that they're writing down everything they need from the information I was giving them as well.
Is that what you did then? You would go into those meetings, and the next day or the next evening you would be like, I need to do my research.
Yes, I definitely was. I still do that to this day because since my cohorts that I provide are industry agnostic, I feel like I'm learning new things every time I'm starting a cohort, whether we have founders that are just more in the social impact space doing things with sustainability, with clothing, or we have founders that are creating fitness apps, or founders that are creating specific chemicals within shoes to make sure that they are being able to be wearable for a longer period of time. It's so many different areas that I have to learn through. It's pretty much every evening I'm like, what else do I need to read? What other article do I need to go to make sure that I'm preparing myself and the founders for those next meetings that we have?
Have you ever asked ChatGPT for answers?
I have. And it's been I have. It's been helpful, and especially I can even give an example for that. I've had a founder first time in this tech space, didn't really know the process of investors asking questions, and that was a great example for me. Just using great way for me using ChatGPT, being able to just be like, I have specific questions that I would ask some of my founders if like we're going through a pitch process. But broadly, what are some other questions that may pop up that you may not know? So now we're being able to use ChatGPT to have those questions, and now you have a list of about 20 to 30 questions that you can kind of just think through as you're working through your pitch deck to be able to kind of be prepared in a sense.
Yeah, I think that's the power of AI, augment. It's like an assistant, right? And, you're not going to have to sit there and Google and then like look through pages of information and try to look through links and then try to read and try to assemble all that. You can just ask it to do it for you. And then it gives you, 10 seconds later, it gives you exactly what you were looking for. Founders need to also leverage that kind of tool. Is there another cohort coming up? I mean, if I'm a founder and I'm interested in getting mentored, how do I apply to gBETA? And how do I make sure I get in? Right? What's a great application? The perfect, archetype, founder that would I'd be one of the 5 you pick out of the 50.
So we do a cohort in the spring and the fall. So we just wrapped up actually this week our spring cohort, and we will be having a next one probably sometime mid-October.
Okay, so get the application in.
Yes, get the applications in. You can go to generator.com/gBETA Houston.
But what would stand out to you in an application? I apply, and what gets me into the top 10%? Are you selecting them, or is there like a committee?
So it's a little bit of a committee, and it's me. So I do the first go-arounds of the applications. Right now, what I'm really looking for, because we've had CPG companies in the past, I'm looking and leaning a little bit more towards text-based solutions at the moment. But one big thing that I've kind of learned as I've been picking these cohorts is I look for founders that may not be in kind of the startup community at this moment. So a lot of the founders I've seen are kind of been picking through, or I've noticed, they're creating these amazing products, but they're creating them in silos. And I want to be able to kind of bring in more founders that are kind of just now hearing about this cohort, whether it's on this podcast or they're kind of seeing a post about it on LinkedIn, but bringing those founders in from just different aspects of Houston. When it came to picking founders for my cohorts, I feel like a lot of it was a little bit of showing up and then having those initial conversations with a lot of those founders prior to even application. So some of the founders I've met with at different networking events within the city. We've been able to have rapport over time. Some of those founders were even giving me updates on what they were working on prior to the applications opening. And then some founders kind of just found me on LinkedIn or found my email and was like, I'd love to set time with you. And hearing a lot of those founders' stories of what they were working on, whether they were just now starting off with the developments of their apps, or now they are developing their apps and now they have their waiting lists that they're currently developing for their products. I feel like those two things were really big pieces for me. Being able to show up and I see you wanting to be in the space, seeing you involved in different aspects, and then being able to take that initiative to be like, this is a program I want to be in. Let me go ahead and already connect with Muriel and tell her, like, this is what I'm working on, and continuously updating me as time is going on.
So founder. Founder motivation. Interesting.
Yeah, definitely it was that. And then there's a big piece on coachability too. Some of the founders that I've seen over the time being in my program is that they took feedback and they took feedback well. You'd get connected with about 65 plus individuals coming through my program. So being able to pivot when you need to with some of the feedback that you get, or maybe taking some of that feedback with a grain of salt and being like, well, maybe this is a good amount of feedback that I'm getting back right now. It may not be good for currently, but it may be good for the future.
Okay. Well, Muriel, this has been very interesting to learn more about what you're doing at gBETA. I think it is something that's needed, here in the community. Maybe you could leave us with a few words of wisdom for those out there that are ready to start forging their own futures in the world of entrepreneurship.
I think one big thing that I would say that I could say is being open. I think being open to coaching, being open to different opportunities that you may not think are that right opportunity at the moment is super important. I'm thinking back to one of my founders. There was a vendor table that they had at Impact Hub when we were going through our program. And there was one specific company that was talking to her about a program that they were running. And she was like, it doesn't seem like it'd be the right program for me, but I'll go to the interest meeting and just see how it kind of goes. That interest meeting led to her being in the program and being able to win the pitch competition. That money that she won for that pitch competition ended up assisting her with the rest of the development of her app. So I feel like one big thing when it comes to founders, or kind of just that wisdom for forging the future, is always being open for opportunities no matter where they land and no matter how they come to you. You may not notice at the moment when it's coming to you if you need it at that moment of time, but everything kind of happens and comes to you for a reason. So making sure that in that season that you're in, if that opportunity is coming to you, it's there for you for that reason.
Very helpful. Yeah, absolutely. I think coachability is one of the top things that you really need to have in a founder, and understanding what you don't know. Well, thanks, Muriel. I have something for you.
Oh.
I think, I'm big on socks. I've got my space socks on today, my NASA socks. Go Houston. Some Wonder Woman socks for you.
Oh, thank you. These are so cute.
You're a Wonder Woman for startups.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Appreciate it.